A new poll indicates that Trump's base and Republican voters in general are deeply loyal to Donald Trump, so much so that they would trust him over their own family members. So I'm gonna skip ahead to graphic 6 here, where this CBS News YouGov poll specifically asks, how they like whether they feel who they trust the most, right? So let's take a look at the list. And if you see that among the top answers, you have Donald Trump coming in at 71%. And then coming in at number 2 is friends and family at 63%. But luckily, friends and family, Cenk, come before conservative media figures who come in at 56%. And they even trust conservative media figures more than religious leaders, who came in 4th at 42%.
Yeah, to me, that is so telling on so many different rounds. So this is exactly what happens in a cult, where you trust a cult leader more than friends and family, religious leaders, any other leaders, period. So yes, that's the thing that most people are focusing on. I'm gonna come back to cults, because this is not the only cult in the country. There's one that's even arguably larger, okay? But there's 2 other things that are really interesting, 3 other things. One is the battle between Trump and Fox News. Well, people thought eventually Fox News will overwhelm Trump, but so far it doesn't look like that. It looks like Trump is overwhelming Fox News. Ever since Fox News has started backing DeSantis and not favoring Donald Trump, this is around the Dominion lawsuit, when they had to pay nearly $800 million because of the lies that Trump basically had them say. Well, since then, Trump has only grown his lead. And now you look at this poll and they say, no, we trust Trump even more than right-wing media figures. So that is very important. And a lot of people wind up in the Republican Party because of evangelical Christianity. So for Trump to have about a 30-point lead on religious leaders in the Republican Party, wow. So that tells you they got him above Jesus. I mean, remember the story that we did just last week, where there was a famous evangelical leader saying, now when we preach the gospel of Jesus, people are saying it's weak and Trump wouldn't like it. I mean, it is full-blown cult land now.
Okay, I think the mistake that you make, and you make it often, is thinking of the Republican Party, or at least the Republican voting base, as the same as like the Bush years. When in reality, it's very different now, right? Like, so the dominance of religious fundamentalists within the Republican Party has definitely waned. But on top of that, there's a pretty significant portion of young Democratic voters, millennials in particular, who are now gravitating toward the Republican Party. And these are not socially conservative individuals. They're actually socially quite moderate. And they've decided to leave the Democratic Party partly because of their affection for Donald Trump. And so the question is, what is it that's so alluring about Donald Trump and so unappealing about the Democratic Party that's now leading to, I wouldn't say mass exodus, I think that goes too far, but there certainly is some percentage of young voters who are now leaving the Democratic Party and going to the Republican Party. But on top of that, I mean, something we've also talked about, Cenk, is the Democratic Party is losing support among, Black and Latino voters as well, particularly young men, right? So I think it would be a mistake to think of the Republican voting base as what it was, a decade ago.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Anna, but the overwhelming base of Trump voters, according to the exit polls, though, is still evangelical white Christians.
Yeah.
And so it's changed, but the core is still the same. The folks that you're talking about definitely exist, and they're definitely a significant faction of the new Republican base. And so those folks are the ones that are anti-establishment, and they can't stand the lies of the establishment and the politicians, et cetera. And Trump has misdirected them into supporting him rather than an actual cause that would clean up that corruption. So now
there really are no other viable anti-establishment candidates, certainly not in the Democratic side. So the anti-establishment strain within the Democratic electorate is like, no, that guy, he sounds like he's speaking truth to power, right? I think that's part of what's attracting them to Trump.
Well, that's exactly the problem here, which is that Trump snuck in as an anti-establishment guy because the mainstream media thought he was a clown, had no chance of winning, and they thought this is going to be a good entertainment clown. We're going to get a lot of ratings, and they even said it on air. And he's a celebrity, and he's rich. He had all these things that allowed him to sneak by. Anyone who is not incredibly rich and already a celebrity has almost no chance of breaking through in establishment media. So, for example, Marianne Williamson is anti-establishment. To be fair, I'm not sure that she's as charismatic as Donald Trump, and I hate to say that because Trump is charismatic in a bozo way, and Marianne's smart. But she's got that issue. But on top of that, she can't get 1% of the publicity that Trump got in 2015 and 2016. So, and the mainstream media is never going to acknowledge that portion of the Republican base and that portion of the Democratic base that you're talking about, Anna, which leads me to answer the question that I set up earlier. What's the larger cult? To me, the larger cult is the establishment. So the mainstream media is their marketing arm, and they tell you that politicians are having real debates and they're not getting bribed, and that we don't live under corporate rule, and that we really have a democracy where they have honest debates and represent us. Well, that's more ridiculous than anything Donald Trump has said. And yeah, I mean that. I mean, Donald Trump has said insane things, but there's nothing more insane than saying that millions of dollars in campaign contributions do not affect politicians. It's absurd. But unfortunately, a giant cult exists in America that believes that because they got brainwashed by the establishment's marketing arm, which is mainstream media. So yeah, I'm with you. Trump's in a cult, okay? The Trump followers are. But so are the mainstream media followers. And they never, ever, ever acknowledge that because they're the leaders of that cult.
I think we're all in cults. I think we're all in political cults unless we pierce the bubble that we're in. That includes people in the progressive left, that includes the establishment, that includes, the MAGA crowd. And it's the unwillingness to even consider opposing views as potentially legitimate or with merit. And I think that's a really big problem in the country, because when we stop talking to each other and opening ourselves up to information that might challenge our preconceived notions, it's just gonna continue dividing the country. And right now, I mean, when you look at the rest of the poll, a lot of these Trump loyalists genuinely believe that all of these indictments are politically motivated and that there's nothing to them, that it's just a witch hunt, right? And so this is part of the problem that I'm referring to, right? When you're kind of conditioned in whatever media filter bubble you exist in, and then you kind of fortify your own views to a point where you're impenetrable. You don't even consider the other side or other perspectives. And that's really the biggest issue I see in the country right now. Everyone's in a cult.
Yeah, so I hear you on that. And the thickest bubble is the one you're in, meaning the problem is it's easy to see other people's bubble. It's very hard to see the bubble that you yourself are in. So please keep an open mind and look around and see, challenge your assumptions. Are you sure you're right about these things? What are the actual facts? And we tell you to do that even about our own coverage. And so last thing I'll tell you from this poll that's devastating, that I don't think anyone else has pointed out. If you do the math on it, based on another portion of the poll, 45% of Republican voters say that they are definitely voting for Donald Trump and will not change their minds. That means this primary is, unless something massive happens, and with Trump that's always possible, but without something massively different happening, this primary is already over.
And then one final point of clarification I have to make. Let's go back to graphic 6. I should note that the margin, like the results between those who trust Trump the most and those who trust friends and family the most, there's a margin of error in the poll to the tune of 7.2 points. So it's within the margin of error. I just wanted to mention that because it could be even. It could be that people genuinely do trust Trump more than their own family members. Either way, even if it's a tie between family members and Trump, it's not a good sign. You should definitely trust your family more than random political figures and politicians.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.